podcast today at Wear Many Hats. Very excited to interview Rupert Dean, who is currently the CEO of X+WHY. Welcome.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for coming along to share your story with us. We're really excited to have you here.
Yeah, likewise. Excited to share.
Brilliant. So how did you get here today? You mentioned that you were around the corner. Was it?
Yeah, so one of our sites, we've got quite a few sites in London, and one of our sites is at Bloomsbury House, brand new, it's just opened. It's owned by the Bedford Estate, just around the corner from here. And we've actually got another one just down the road towards Chancery Lane from here. So got a few. I was spoiled for choice in terms of where I came from. So all very easy.
Nice. That's nice. And the weather's not too bad today either. So
no,
a walk.
It's still sunny enough to call it summer, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Lovely. Thank you. So X+WHY, very exciting.
Yeah.
Just for our listeners, what do they do? What do you guys do?
What does X+WHY do? So, well, we started off doing one thing, and then it's become, like, inevitably, as these things do, it's sort of morphed into something else. So X+WHY originally was was the delivery of kind of really high-end, innovative co-working space with a mission. And the mission was to change the way the world worked for good. And we always were obsessed by this idea of understanding the connection between doing good and doing well. So those companies essentially that thought about people and planet as well as profit, built more sustainable, long-term brands that people wanted to work for and people like you and I wanted to buy from. And obviously big advocates of like B Lab and the B Corp movement and things like that were happening back in those days as just sort of almost in their infancy, but with very much a growing kind of trend. And I thought, wouldn't it be really great to take the zeitgeist of kind of using people wanting more flexibility in their workspace, but actually building a community within really sustainable and innovative environments where you could have people who had always thought about people and planet as well as profit and mix them with people who were just starting that journey and really kind of creating a really inspiring platform for them to engage with each other, create meaningful connections, see if you can get those people that were just at the beginning of their journey to start becoming sort of slightly more impact driven and start to prove that connection essentially between doing good and doing well, and then amplify the successes that they were all doing. So that was I mean, that still is the mission and it still is the journey. But we started off doing purely kind of co-working or flex workspace in East London. And now we do members clubs, front of house for multi-tenanted buildings, events, meetings, club spaces, kitchens, all those sorts of things. So we look at the entire journey of a tenant in a building from the moment they arrive to the moment they leave. And whether that's them being a member of X+WHY in either our workspace or as a member in one of our club spaces, whatever, we look openly at the whole building. So we work with landlords to look at the entire building, not just our space.
Gosh, and I mean, we're going to go back to the beginning where it all started for you, but we'll come back onto X+WHY because obviously you've been there a little while now, and I'm sure there's part of this that your journey that you'll be bringing up about X+WHY, but it's very exciting. It sounds pretty amazing, and as you're around the corner, I'll probably have to go and have a little look.
Yeah, come on in.
Have a little nose.
Come on in for sure.
Thank you so much. So let's rewind a little bit. Where did it all start for you? Where you
So originally I was a corporate finance lawyer. So I left university and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So mum and dad were obviously like, are you going to be a lawyer, banker or accountant? And I didn't like maths very much at the time. So I decided to become a corporate finance lawyer because I thought deals were fun and you can make more money doing it that way. And it was all a bit of a trap and I wanted to get out as soon as possible.
Right.
But it's very, very difficult to leave if you don't know what you want to do. So it's about, finding that journey of purpose in your life to work out what it is that you end up having enthusiasm for and excitement for and what gets you out of bed in the morning. It wasn't, frankly, law. But over a period of time, I was in the law, and then what happened was I ended up going off to work in Africa. I thought the best way of getting out of being a lawyer was to go and help a couple of people set up a business operating out in primarily East Africa.
I saw this.
So we were in Kenya and Uganda and Mozambique, South Africa, Zambia, Tanzania.
Wow.
And we set up a sort of development finance business, construction business, facilities management business, and there was an opportunity to acquire a serviced office business. And it had various offices around Africa, and then we bought that out, and I was sort of leading on that, acquired that, grew it, and I loved it. I thought it was just a really interesting business model, and at the time, my wife, we had our first child. I think child number 2 came along, and I thought, I can't do this anymore because I was spending so much time in Africa. And I thought what was really interesting was to try and do something in the UK that was different to what everyone else was doing. So I wanted to create a brand that stood for something in the market, in quite a crowded market within the co-working, the flex space, quite crowded. And I thought, what was it that I wanted to do? And so I started to get under the bonnet of those companies that were, thinking about what business for good meant. And I really got into it. I thought it was fantastic. And I knew a lot of brands from Innocent to Virgin that were doing it really well. And I spoke to a lot of them, and I spoke to a lot of CEOs. And I thought, this is a movement that is growing based on some of the world's fundamental problems, based on UN Sustainable Development Goals, based on the growth of B Corp and the B Corp movement. And frankly, all the terrible headlines that you were starting to get every day, whether it's climate or climate education, hunger, whatever. And actually, the business had a fundamental role in solving some of those problems. So I thought that's when the idea of X and Y came along. And the X in X and Y stands for those brands that just have forgotten why they started and just think about bottom line, don't care about their people in recession. They die. And then brand Y, which is obviously WHY, which is those people that are seeking to change something, innovators who treat people really well, don't forget about why they started, build fans, not customers. And in recessions, they thrive and people stick with them. And I thought that was a really interesting journey from trying to get people from being less brand X to more brand Y. So that's why it's called X and Y.
That's fantastic. There's just so much meaning behind X and Y. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and also you could say there was another theory that it could have been around a profit graph, so an X and Y profit graph, but making profit in the right way. That's also one of the other considerations for the name. But it's stuck and it's different. And it also always invariably comes up in conversations when people are saying something and they go, well, sort of X and Y and this, that, and the other, and X that, and they always mention it. So you get mentioned a few more times than you think. So.
Absolutely. It is a great name. I remember when I first heard it come out, I was like, I like that a lot. And I have followed your journey because you're now national, aren't you? So
yes,
it's not just London. You've got, 8 locations?
Yeah, so about to open in Leeds, but we're in Manchester, Birmingham, Milton Keynes, London. So now we're 14 spaces now. Yeah.
8 in central London.
Yes, exactly.
You've got 7 sustainable spaces. So that's what it says on your website.
Is that right? Okay.
0% landfill waste.
Yes.
You've got trees saved. But it's like I love your website, and I'm also having a good read before we met with you and before we asked you to come in as well, because a lot of this to do with facilities as well. In the building space itself. But obviously, I don't think you realised, because you've already mentioned it. Obviously, you're going to ask you about. Did you always know you would sort of end up on this path? Clearly not. No. Because you started in law. I
had no idea, but I don't think I always knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial. I wasn't very good at being pinged down or told what to do. So maybe I was a bit rebellious, but I always wanted to do something. I never knew what I wanted to do. But sometimes you just have to go on that journey to find out what your passion is and what you're interested in. Once you find that, you go for it. And once I found out that I really enjoyed the model around flexible workspace, I found out about the concept of building a brand and what the brand was going to be about. And then we were going to be authentic to the mission. I thought it was a really good opportunity. So we went for it. And this was obviously pre-COVID, so started in 2019. I think we opened our first building, opened our second on March 2020. And so it was obviously a bit of a shock. But as a result, the whole landscape of how people use the commercial real estate portfolio has completely changed. So nowadays, people are looking for far more amenity within their building, more pairs you use, more flexibility. And landlords have had to become quite operational focused, whereas before they were typically very happy just to build it. People would come, they'd flip it, and they'd do it again with a bigger version of it. And nowadays they really have to think about the journey that they're giving to those customers, and also the environmental credentials that they purport to have for that building, but that they also want to maintain in that building. So as X+WHY, we can just provide that one-stop shop for landlords, whether they're looking for flexible workspace, or whether it's food and beverage within the building, or whether it's front of house, or whether it's an event space, or whether it's meeting space, or whether it's all of those things, we can provide them.
And I feel there's a lot more feeling towards, an office, a home office almost. Like, it's so comfortable to be in these spaces,
For sure. I despise the idea that it's about coming in to sit at a desk and work. I just think it's so old school.
Yes.
We don't need to do that anymore. And anybody that comes in to just sit at a desk, it reminds me about when I was a lawyer, and there really was that mentality of being seen and having to put your jacket on the back of the chair to show that you were still there, even if you probably weren't. And it was a strange culture. And I think now it's much more sort of purposeful in how you use workspace. And if you think about what binds us in terms of us interacting as humans or families, it's a lot of it is around food and beverage.
Yes.
And why shouldn't that be the case in the workspace? So hence we think that it's a really sort of core component of a successful office space. And it should feel like home, right? Like, there's no reason why something should feel ice cold because it's an office. And actually people want to feel like they're comfortable, and the office is becoming about mentoring, about fun, about engagement, all those sorts of things. So why wouldn't you use it to sort of enhance your own culture as a business? So that's the whole point, really.
So you mentioned food and chefs, and
yes.
So this about in an office like space.
Well, because we do like a la carte menus in quite a few of our spaces. So we run, like in Clapham Junction, we've got something called the Arding Rooms, which is a full-on members club. So it's open to external members, and there is a whole chef's team. There's an a la carte menu. There's an event space. It's an incredible building. There's a terrace. There's a whole bar with cocktail team and.
Wow.
All of those sorts of things, because it's interesting and it's exciting. It's a cool area. There's lots of people there who are looking for something a bit different, and I think that everybody wants to come together. I funnily enough, I think how people spend money now is changing, and I think people are really interested in the kind of hospitality side, so engaging with one another, as well as things like fitness and well-being. And so people are prepared to spend money for things like this, as well as things like gyms and holidays and that sort of thing now. And so that's kind of the purpose behind it, as well as a full program of kind of really cool things that we do with all of our members, whether it's drinks or learnings or whatever it happens to be. So all the fun stuff, right?
Yeah. Makes me never want to leave and go home.
That's the point. That's the point. Keep staying. Very dangerous for me, I have to say. Very dangerous. I spend my time far too much, which is why you can probably hear my husky voice, because I spend far too much time trying cocktails or something like that. So,
brilliant. Great pastime.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does a day in your world look like? In work, let's talk about work.
Oh, it can be. It's totally varied. So I don't have an office. I will go to, which I probably should admit, but I will go to any one of our offices that where there's a meeting going on. I'll have endless meetings. If I'm honest, I might be speaking to landlords. I might be pitching new buildings. I might be building teams. I might be helping any one of our departments. I might be talking to shareholders. I will be doing any number of crazy and strange things. It's quite difficult actually to bring order sometimes into it, because you are covering so many bases. As you're building a team, and we're about 140 people at X+WHY, you're constantly building it. And therefore what you want to do is make sure that you maintain the DNA within the business, the mission, and you want to build a culture that's great, right? That's really good. And you never want to lose that for the sake of growth for growth's sake.
Yes.
And so we spend a lot of time working, whether it's with our people team, whether it's with the ops team, whether it's the design team, whether it's the sales marketing team, to make sure that they're all working together, but ultimately that they're having a good time at the same time, if that makes sense. And
they'll be more productive, though, won't they?
Right. Yeah. And also that people just need to know why they're doing what they're doing. Like that. I mean, in the absence of anything else, the why and the X and Y is like, why are we doing what we do?
It's so good. I don't even think sometimes about that. You just do your job.
Well, a lot of people do the point and shoot thing, just go and do that. And lots of people just go and do it. But actually what you've got to do is you've got to kind of work out what the overall mission is of your business, what everybody's role is in achieving that and being able to track that. And then you can say, look, you've achieved this, which has contributed towards this overall mission. Isn't that awesome? And that's why we do an impact report every year that you just mentioned earlier. So I think it's all part of it. We actually wrote a book called Mission Lit that was all about that. So it was all about what a mission lit business was all about. So it was all about having a clear purpose and using that to enhance culture with your own employees. And take a look. It's very cool.
Wrote that down.
Yeah.
Very interesting. What about challenges? You mentioned earlier about opening up in COVID, I'm assuming, and I always bring that up, I don't know why, but COVID was huge. You were opening literally in the year of COVID.
Well, we opened our second site on the month of lockdown, first lockdown. So it was
unfair.
How unfair. But one of these things is it felt terrible at the time, and it was not easy. It was very stressful. But once you sort of worked out what was happening here, time actually, you almost learned more over time. And we went on a big sort of business development drive with landlords because everyone else, because typically we do management agreements. In fact, we do only management agreements, which means we partner with landlords to be able to be their agent on their behalf to be able to enhance the overall tenant journey in a building.
Lovely.
And therefore, we could say to our existing landlords at that time, do a deal with them, work very closely with our existing tenants. But once that was done, we could go out looking at other buildings where landlords didn't have anybody else, right? And it was very difficult to fill buildings. Well, obviously it was impossible to fill buildings. And over time, you started to see this sort of change in how people wanted to use the building and actually taking far smaller amounts of sort of net space and relying on the landlord to provide them far more of the things that they would typically have put in their lease before, but which they now wanted to just use on a pay-as-you-use basis. Cool. And that movement started to become much more obvious. And then much more service delivery and what people were looking for to enhance the culture, mostly to try and bring employees back into the office.
Yes, this was a problem.
So that started to sort of change, and people were much more cognizant of what their office was like. And so they didn't just put people in a dark room and say, work and come in 5 days a week and do it. And so culture changed. Office space changed, how people use it completely changed. The flexibility that landlords were looking for changed. And so we were just right there, doing it with landlords. And we were just lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And as a result, we opened quite a few buildings in 2023 coming out of lockdown, and 24, and then, opened another however many this year. And a good pipeline of buildings. And now it's just about making sure that it's the right buildings with the right values-aligned landlords that we partner with to make sure that there's amazing return on effort and we can deliver a product that we're super proud of.
Gosh, I would be super proud as a landlord to have X and Y in my building.
That's the way. Yes, of course. Yeah. Well said, Rachel. Yeah.
All right, we talk about where do you think the industry is heading now? I mean, obviously you seem to be pioneers of where it's heading, but you must always be thinking of something new. Next, what do we do now? Just with your X and Y.
That's always the problem with being the entrepreneur. That I think people just dread it because you go, I've just had a new idea, and everyone goes, "Oh, for God's sake, what is he doing now?" But who knows what kind of? I think we're pretty well established in the services that we provide. But I just think in this industry, there's a lot of operators in this industry, and I always think that there's value at the very highest end and there's value at the lowest end. So some people want to spend lots of money to get unbelievable level of service and fit out and design and hospitality, and they want members clubs to be part of that, and they want to use all of that to create a really good culture and a phenomenal brand themselves that aligns and means they're more successful. And then you have people who just want cheap, right? And and there's a market in both. The middle bit is a bit more difficult, like not being able to identify in either of those camps. It's much more difficult to be able to differentiate yourself. So I suspect the word service and the word hospitality will be used a lot more in how people perceive themselves and purport themselves to be. So, and I think other things like hotels are changing at the same time, like, the Hoxton Hotel and the Ennismore Group and all that. The idea is that we are fundamentally coming out of a tricky period, and people now want to be together more than ever before. And we've got to create these spaces to make that not only possible, but like amazing, and enhance that experience more than they've ever experienced before. And I think people are loving it.
And technology, we mentioned AI earlier, and ESG, that's obviously something huge you guys are already doing a lot towards.
Yeah, so we do a lot of, so we've put AI into a lot of our processes, and that's been really successful, particularly on sort of things like day passes and early sales and co-working flexible passes and things like that. But I also think AI is really interesting. It's obviously going to completely, transform the working landscape, and it's going to be an incredible era and age in humanity. But it's also going to do what I said earlier. It's going to, people are going to want to be with people. It's, it doesn't stop the idea that we as humans fundamentally exist to engage with one another. Yeah, and you can have all the systems and processes and all the robots you want and all the artificial intelligence you want. But I think more than anything else, people will therefore continue even more so to want to be with each other in a kind of a fun setting where you can be sane rather than, not and just, not have to move and be surrounded by intelligence that does everything for you. So I think for what the hospitality brands, I think it's quite exciting. I think it'll enhance your processes and your systems, but it'll also mean that people will engage with it far more.
And do you think the industry as a whole is innovating fast enough, or do you think we're still playing catch up?
I think it's a really good question. I think that we are a very fragmented group of people. I think there's a lot of operators out there. And when we talk about the market, I'm talking about sort of flexible workspace providers principally. And there's a lot of operators out there. I don't think we're very good at coming together. I might get in trouble for saying it, but I think that there could probably be a bit more consolidation in the market, certainly consolidation in how people work together and build a voice for our industry. Because in the absence of that, you're quite vulnerable to various things, whether it's business rates changes or utility hikes or whatever it is. So I think we could all do a lot better at working together. It's a very, very nascent and green industry, the flex workspace industry. I'm going to say, maybe 60 years old versus hotels that are kind of, hundreds of years old, right? And banking, that's the oldest industry in the world. And wherever there was anything, there was always lawyers, and before, and everybody needed cleaning, right? Yes. And I think flex workspace, for want of a much better expression, is new, and it's going to take a while, I think.
Yeah. Well, there is the Flexer, which used to be the BCM.
Yeah.
Which is a business. I know they do a lot around legislation.
Yeah, they do.
I think that's one that I do know. GCUC, I think that's another one.
Yeah, well, that's the conferencing.
They've got some. That's when I know everybody gets together.
Yeah, brilliant. We love Juicy, and because I went to the one in Boston actually 3 months ago. So that was such a good bunch of people that run that, and such a wonderful. And that's the thing. I mean, it is an amazing industry full of really interesting people. I'm talking internationally as well, because everyone comes in for the Juicies because they're always, whether you're in Australia, it's always the same guys, or wherever. It's like Singapore, Australia, America, whatever. And it's always a really, really good laugh, and it's a good opportunity to learn from each other. So it's a really valuable conference and get together. But I just think what I meant earlier was, to represent. You're right. Flexer is probably the best example of an entity that represents that sector.
You've got to know who they are, haven't you?
Yeah.
To join them and
yeah. But exactly, and you've got to look like you're a big and coordinated entity. Otherwise, people will. It's so much easier to pick on that industry rather than say, dare I say, like tobacco or alcohol or anything like that, or health or whatever, where you change any of that, and the lobbying groups and the size of it and how well together they are so coordinated that the noise that they create is absolutely enormous. So for someone like Rachel Reeves is going to, do a spending review, God forbid, she upsets that. Whereas the individual is much easier picked off, and the worker is much easier picked off, and the small industry like Flex Workspace is quite easily picked off. Yeah. And so, and in difficult times like this, it's important.
It's getting bigger, isn't it? I've noticed there's so many new operators coming out.
Yeah. There does seem to be. I mean, I was literally just in the building here, into reception. I met someone who I hadn't seen for ages, who was previously at a different workspace, and now was secretly planning to open up another, was building a business plan to open a Flex Workspace business. And I just thought, wow, they just keep coming. They just keep coming. Yeah.
Maybe that's something you could do. You could set up something where you represent the industry.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm so tired.
Not for you, then.
No, you're right. You know what? You're absolutely right. And I always say to myself, us, and I do. Listen. I'm great friends with so many CEOs and COOs of the workspace sector and the hospitality group, and we always say to a person, we always say to each other, we need to do more to come together, and we never do because, I don't know, maybe we're just an entirely useless band of people, but ultimately it just, there's always an excuse not to, which is bad. And we're always just super busy.
Yes. Okay, let's do this first.
Yeah.
You still seem very, very young. I think you've got many years ahead of you.
You're very kind, Rachel. Very kind. Keep it coming. Yeah.
Time.
Yeah, that's true.
So, looking back, what moment? I mean, you've got fantastic projects that you've done, the West Africa that you spoke of earlier. But what project or moment are you still proud of today?
I think X+WHY's first site was a real plunge, because coming back into the UK to start up a business in a pretty busy sector and finding a building with an aligned landlord and building that community, and it was fun, and it was different back in those times because you've only had one building and you had a really clear mission.
Yeah.
And so I'd find myself at all sorts of better business conferences and communicating with social enterprises and charities, and I'd be in Bethnal Green at 1 a.m. in the morning talking to extraordinary people about ideas for how we can improve business and how we can improve that connection between doing well and doing it. And that, you were so close to your brand and to your mission and to the community that you built. And without any of that, without all of that, X+WHY wouldn't exist. And it has changed. And I'm not in Bethnal Green at 1 a.m. mostly because I got 3 children. But it is testament to that time that we are now here as a big and established brand that I think most people who are looking for an operator within a commercial real estate would know. Yeah. And I think that's great.
And which was your first building?
It was a building called People's Mission Hall over in, so it was actually called 20 to 30 Whitechapel Road over in Aldgate East. And we had a really lovely landlord who we knew from my business partner's charity. It was chair of a charity, and the landlord was very affiliated with that charity. And it happened to have the most amazing history. It used to be the original mission hall for the Salvation Army. Oh. So it had so many permutations and correlations with us as a brand and what we were trying to do with the better business world. So we took that, created the brand People's Mission Hall, used some of the Salvation Army colors and all of that sort of history of what it stood for and what it was, layered that into all of the design and the story, which we do with every building. But, sometimes they're not as rich in history and heritage as that one. And then that then has its own tone of voice, right? It has its own style. It has its own community. And that's what we do with all of our buildings. But that first one was just gold, it was just pure gold in that aspect. Yeah.
I want to do that. I definitely want to see that.
It's just evolved and it's established. And now you've got, amazing. So the great story about that was a couple of people that came to us and had an idea to build a school, actually an undergraduate course that had an interdisciplinary curriculum, which means that ultimately you're not just studying history or English or French or whatever. You're actually working out how to solve some of the world's problems by looking over multiple disciplines. And so they established something called the London Interdisciplinary School. And it's incredible kind of university that does undergraduate and postgraduate degrees. And they came as 2 people. They now have taken about 10,000 square foot at People's Mission Hall, and they have about 300 graduates and running through there, and amazing teachers teaching these incredible subjects. And that's a great story.
Yes.
But like that for us is just like absolutely dreamy.
Yes.
What an amazing story for X+WHY to be able to support that, to be part of that journey. And those stories are what makes it all worthwhile, right?
That is definitely something to be proud of.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Super cool. Yeah.
I love that. I love the Salvation Army and what they do as well. So what is something that you wish you knew when you were just starting out? Because obviously you were not where you were.
Oh, I wish I knew how hard it was going to be. No, the thing about being an entrepreneur, I think, is that you do learn just something most days, and you don't ever realize it.
Yeah.
So you'd never know how much you have changed and how much you have learned. And I think that you get so much insight into life and business, and it's like an MBA on steroids most days. Mm-hmm. And I think, because of how time slowly moves on, you don't high five you don't celebrate the moments, you move on to the next, but you also don't realize how valuable what you have is, what you've learned is, and how you can sort of help other people along the way to be able to not make the same mistakes, or to be able to get there quicker. Yeah. And so I wish I'd almost used other people's experience more to be able to do that and get there quicker, and to be able to make less mistakes along the way. Although I was saying that mistakes are fundamental, they're really important to growth and innovation. But I think leaning on other people is often really good, and don't be too kind of, I'm not going to say arrogant, it's the wrong word, but pig-headed not to do that, and lean and learn from other people for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's some good advice. But surely you must have some use of your law degree.
Yeah, I mean, I think I use it every day, right? Like, even if you're doing commercial transactions,
yes, you must know.
Risk mitigation is a really important part of what we do at X+WHY. So, you talk about ESG, and the governance side is really important. That, not only do we report in the right way, but also that we're the governance and how our checks and balances works, and the risk associated with X+WHY is really clearly tied off. So I use it most days, and I certainly wouldn't be here had I not been a lawyer. There's no way. I mean, maybe I would have been doing something else entirely more fun. I don't know. Professional kite surfer, who knows? But so maybe that would have been better. But I certainly wouldn't be doing this now had I not been a lawyer.
Exactly. So I think everything is aligned perfectly.
Yeah, it's all part of the journey.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
So if someone came to you tomorrow saying, I want to do what you do, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say, well, I suppose playing on that theme, I would say that you have to build a brand that's very different. And you have to really, really, really think about not what you do, but why and how you do it. Mm-hmm. And if you can get that sorted, there's a really good TED Talk that we all know about by Simon Sinek, who spoke about knowing your why. And he spoke about brands that were very, very good at explaining why they did what they did. And that's why consumers and customers like to buy from those brands specifically, and what differentiated them from others. And there's obviously the story about how, Apple is very different to IBM, for example, and how they built that brand based on, really clear purpose. And I think that's what brands are, but you just have to be really authentic to it. So there's a difference between a brand that says it does something and doesn't actually do it, and a brand that says it does something and is authentic to it and does it. Yeah. And I think you have a really good chance. You have a really good chance of building a successful business if you create a brand that has a clear mission, ideally to solve some sort of fundamental problem, and that you construct your business to be able to fulfill that. Yeah. And in a way, you'll never fulfill it. That you create a mission that you'll never fulfill, because then you're constantly trying to get there. Someone called it to me like the big hairy goal. But you go and find something that you always like. So for me, trying to prove the connection between doing good and doing well, I'm never going to do that. Like, that's impossible. But I can make a decision based around how it would help do that. And how we can support better business along the way, and how we can constantly think about impact and members and how change and how we can change the way we work. That's important as long as we're authentic to it.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people put brands out there where they're not authentic to it and they don't last as long, is my gut feel.
Yes.
Yeah. So build a really good brand based on a really, really clear why, and be authentic to it and go for it.
Take office space with you guys, and we will support them.
Become members, take office space. Yeah, no, we would. We genuinely love supporting entrepreneurs. We love supporting brands that do it authentically. We love supporting companies that are thinking about people and planet as well as profit.
It's great what you've done.
Yeah.
It's very inspired. It is. And I do have to come down and look.
Yes, definitely come down and look.
So let's wrap up on the work side. What do you like to do to switch off from work? You mentioned 3 kids, so that's...
Yes. I was going to say, there's not a lot of switch on. Saturday's the new Monday for me.
What are their ages first?
So I've got a 10, 8 and 5-year-old.
Down. Wow.
Yeah. So all 3 girls. So I'm outnumbered. I'm out-muscled. I'm certainly out-shouted and outspoken. But they are glorious, obviously. And so, yeah, when I'm not working, time is often spent with them. And so whether it's, going to the park or running around doing kids parties or whatever it is, it's never ending. Do
you think they'll want to do what you do?
No. Yes. They'll want to do completely the opposite. They'll completely rebel. Well, certainly, they're all interesting and unique characters, but my dad was in the army.
Oh.
And I rebelled against that. Yeah. That's part of I don't like people telling me what to do. The idea that I would go into the army and someone would shout at me at 3 a.m. to iron my trousers, that's like anathema to me. And so maybe that's where the entrepreneurial thing is, like the rebellion against that. And my oldest will definitely rebel against anything I do or say. This won't stand the test of time very well when she listens to this. But maybe the others will take after. And I think it's an interesting concept, the idea of building a legacy business, because lots of people build businesses now to sell. Yeah. And actually, I think family businesses and I like, what an unbelievable achievement if you can build a long-term legacy business that your kids can get involved in and ultimately run. That's real authentic. That's really authentic. Lots of people come up and go like, what are you going to do with the business when you're going to sell it? And you just think, well, I'm literally too busy to think about it. But also, if you're thinking about selling something, presumably you're not thinking about the long-term DNA that you're putting into a business to build it over decades. And you're just thinking about short-term growth for growth's sake to be able to flip something. And I think that's not quite the right DNA that we wanted to put in. So I think it would be an amazing thing if one of my children took over the business, but the chances are about as slim as you get, I think. But who knows?
Plenty of time.
Yeah, plenty of time. Yeah. And also, how frightening that I would still be doing this in 15 years' time. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine that we did this podcast in 15 years' time? I'd be, we'll do it again. Exhausted.
15 years.
Yeah, let's do it every 15 years.
I'll be 65 and I'll be retiring as well. I bet I won't. I'll still be working. They'll change it.
Yeah.
They'll say you've got to work till 75.
Exactly, because you're learning all the time by doing the podcast. Imagine how wise you'll be. It's amazing.
Already. I am. I love that. We haven't asked you this one.
Yeah.
Who's your mentor?
I never really had a mentor. I had 2 or 3 people that I really, really respected. One was a partner at the law firm who was just so smart and so commercial and would look at something for 10 seconds and get to the bottom of it, whether it was a massive document or whatever it was, and was just so highly skilled at it. And I loved everything about how he worked. And so he was one. And then the person that ran the African business, one of the smartest people I knew, just instantly knew where the time was best spent and where the biggest risk was. But, in many ways was probably sort of almost overly bright and, sometimes it was just, too many ideas.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll probably listen to this now, but anyway, too many ideas that sometimes it was almost so entrepreneurial that you didn't put that DNA in, but just so bright. And watching that mind at work was amazing. So those are kind of the two main ones, to be honest. But so I don't really have like a mentor that I go to regularly. I just have a bunch of people called children.
They're your mentors.
Exactly.
So last question.
Yes.
What's the best bit of advice you've ever been given? It may have even come from your two mentors there.
Yeah. No, various bits, I suppose. But I always think it's important to be uncomfortable. So someone said to me once, get uncomfortable. Sorry, I'll start again. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because I think the important thing you can always do is to put yourself out there and to challenge yourself and get yourself into situations where you're uneasy, because that's where you learn the most about yourself. And quite often that's where innovation begins.
Yes.
And you have to answer questions that are not easy. And you have to, I don't know whether it's public speaking or whether it's dealing with unhappy people. You will evolve and change and become so much better for it. You'll be able to solve problems you never would have previously had you not put yourself into.
Wise words there from Rupert Dean from X+WHY. Thank you so much, Rupert, for coming along today. And that is the end of today's podcast. Wear Many Hats, the podcast totally dedicated to the FM industry. And we'll see you next time. Take care.